33 are dead, 17 are injured, and 5 of those victims are from Northern Virginia. 3 were Northern Region standout athletes. Here on the Fairfax Sports Report today, we're going to highlight the 5 victims from Northern Virginia. We're going to talk to players, coaches, and the people that knew them the best. All 5 of those players and people will be highlighted on this show. We're all Hokies today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Mason. That's George Mason. This man went to Christopher Newport. But we're all rallying together for the 5 fallen from this area. Before we get to that part of the show, we want to thank the folks that make this show possible here on the Fairfax Sports Report. CCI Screen Printing, for all your screen printing needs at 703-978-0257. Quality Care Ford Service Center, they service all makes and models at 703-383-6299. And Triple Edge Lacrosse, tripleedgelax.com, that's one of our teammates. We mentioned it, guys, 33 dead, one of those a gunman from our local area here from Westfield High School. We're not going to talk about that today. You can find that anywhere else on your TV screen. So if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and flip the channel. We're going to talk about the people behind the names in the Northern Region. As we mentioned, 3 of those were athletes, so we found it proper to highlight all 5, even though 2 of them did not play sports, or at least for Northern Region high school teams. We're going to talk about these people. We're going to talk to former coaches. We're going to talk to family, friends, and we're going to talk to a lot of people that knew the people behind the names. A lot of people are just seeing lists nowadays, and we want to try to bring some human voices to some of the fallen from this area, young people with their whole lives ahead of themselves. I'm BJ Kubarulis, alongside of Paul Frummelt and John Marcario, all local sports journalists, and we've been on the phones talking to some of these people. Paul Frummelt of the Connection newspapers, you got a chance to talk to some of the biggest names out of this area playing at Virginia Tech. As we keep to our sports theme here, you did get a chance to talk to the quarterback and starting wide receiver, both ironically from Westfield, Sean Glennon and Eddie Royal. Here's what they had to say when you got a chance to speak to them on the phone on Monday. Talk a little bit about what that was like.
Well, as the story unfolded on Monday, the first thing that I thought was to talk to the people that I knew from this area. Sean Glennon and Eddie Royal, both standout sports players, football players from Westfield. So around 2:30, I contacted Eddie on his cell phone. I also got a hold of Sean, and here's what Eddie had to say about playing football after something like this. He said, "Football is the last thing on our minds. We're worried about those kids and their families and everything. Football is pretty much the last thing that we are thinking about right now."
Eddie Royal was a standout athlete for Tom Verbanik's Westfield Bulldogs, as was Sean Glennon. Glennon, probably the biggest name from this area, and he's a person too, guys. A lot of people get caught up in the fact that these are star athletes, but he had some thoughts and some feelings about this. Paul, you got a chance to talk to him. What did Sean have to say?
Well, Sean, you see up here, it is definitely going to be hard to have a good old time playing football when the tragedy is hanging over our heads in this small town. We'll be playing for those people in this town. Hopefully that will give us a little something extra. And now when I talked to Sean around 2:30, he had been in his off-campus apartment watching on TV, just like we were back here, transfixed by what was happening on his campus, the campus that he plays football for.
On this show every week, we talk about local athletes, local people, and today we're going to talk about some local athletes and local people who are no longer with us. Sean Glennon and Eddie Royal are still with us, and they're going to be playing next year. They're going to see the field. But the people that we're about to talk about are no longer with us. They're in a better place now. Aaron Peterson from Westfield, where Sean Glennon was from. You talked to him. Mary Karen Reed played lacrosse at Annandale. We'll talk to her coach later in this broadcast. Rima Samaha, also from Westfield. She was very interested in theater. Leslie Sherman, a West Springfield athlete, was on the track team. And Maxine Turner, we're going to get a chance to talk to Maxine's orchestra teacher and one of her best friends, and Cho Sung Wee, also from Westfield, one of the deceased. We're going to highlight the top 5 there and talk a little bit about what they've meant to this northern region and who they were as people. We're going to bring up a former teammate of Aaron Peterson's first. We're going to talk about Aaron Peterson, who played basketball at Westfield High School. You got a chance, Paul, to talk to Pat Deegan right when this thing happened about Aaron. What did Pat have to say? Pat being the coach of the Westfield girls basketball team.
Pat Deegan, who coached Aaron Peterson for 3 years on the starting Westfield Bulldogs team. He said of Aaron, she was the kind of person who made everyone around her feel important. She was a competitor. She loved to win and she loved to hug whomever she played with after the game. She was the kind of kid that made you feel special for knowing her. She was an excellent player and, more importantly, a better person. She was the kind of kid that made everyone around her better before, during, and after the practice and games.
She graduated from Westfield in 2006, and stats aren't important here today, folks, but she was a major part of the team. She was a starter. She played on the team for 3 years, averaged about 8 points a game last year for the Bulldogs. You got a chance to talk to Coach Pat Deegan, and interesting thing that as we get Caitlin Meslar on the phone, she's going to be joining us. Meslar, a former teammate of Aaron Peterson. Caitlin, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Caitlin. We were just remembering Erin, and we know her as a basketball player here on what is a sports show, but we wanted to bring in her teammates and wanted to talk to you a little bit about Erin, and just wanted to kind of hand you the mic and just let you sound off on what kind of person was Erin away from the stat sheet, away from the field, away from the courts. Who was Aaron Peterson?
Aaron Peterson was pretty much an all-around good student, person in the hallways you'd like to see, always run up, give you a big hug if you're having a bad day, put a smile on your face, help you in lunchtime, do whatever you needed to have a good day, and just make you want to go to practice. And she was just an all-around good person.
Now, Caitlin, you were a year younger than Aaron, and as a teammate of hers, as a player on the same court as Aaron, what was she like as a leader for the Westfield Bulldogs team?
She was an amazing leader. She always picked me up when I was down all the time, and she would say our prayers right before the game and get us pumped. And she was always the last one to give me that one big boost to get me ready for any game to play.
Caitlin, what was your most memorable moment of Aaron?
I would say when I first transferred from Chantilly, I came into school not knowing anyone, and I sat down at a lunch table, and she came by and she said, "I'm not going to let you sit alone," and just came and picked me up. And from then on, I ate lunch with her for the past 2 years.
You know, I was reading up about Aaron, and you guys had a meeting yesterday, or the day before rather, and the team got together and talked about Aaron. Can you give us and the folks at home, what was that like? How difficult is that as a high schooler to go through something like that? What was that like?
It was a very difficult time. I hadn't been through anything like that before ever, and I hope not to ever again. And it was a horrible time, but our coaches stood by us, and the faculty was with us the entire way, so they made it a lot easier on us. And I know I wouldn't have been able to do it alone, so I was glad I had my team with me and all the coaches and staff and everything.
Thinking about Aaron, obviously, right now, thinking about the loss. When you want to smile thinking about Aaron, what do you think of?
Oh, man. Just everything about her. Her jokes all the time, and her just everything.
What would you say her legacy is now moving forward?
I would say just making people happy and making everyone's day and just making everything brighter.
Caitlin, we want to thank you for joining us. I think it's very brave that you were able to speak out. I hope at some point that you guys will be able to heal, and I hope that we'll see you in the future doing positive things. Thank you so much for speaking with us, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Caitlin.
And guys, right there, I mean, I want to read something that I did read today, and the source is the Washington Post. You know, this isn't about newspapers or who's what. This is about people, and so I want to read something that I read about Aaron. On strips of paper, the 16 or so students who gathered at Westfield High School yesterday morning to talk about Aaron Peterson, each scribbled on a single anecdote about her. They were supposed to write about what they remembered most about the high school basketball star. And when they were done, almost all the papers told the same story. Peterson had helped someone when it was most needed. And you heard Caitlin mention that she came over and picked her up when she first transferred over. And I think that some of these golden moments are things that are going to be, you asked about legacy. I think that's part of the legacy.
Most definitely, and we're so us being sports journalists in the this area in high school, we talk about her stats, and when she played, we talk about a dominant inside presence. But here's the stories you get from players that played with her, talking about her personality, talking about how she made them laugh. It's not about the stats for her teammates; it's about Erin as a person.
And I want to make it known that we did get a chance to talk to Westfield High School today, or Paul, rather, you got a chance to talk to Westfield High School today. And while we do mention a Westfield player, and obviously the shooter is from Westfield as well, that is not for this show, but something that is for this show, and this being a sports show, Paul, they did not allow anyone to come to Westfield today after the press conference with the principal to do any sort of media coverage of any of the athletic events. Why so?
Well, Westfield, obviously a school that's going to be in the minds of a lot of people, the focal point of a lot of things, with two victims and the shooter coming from Westfield. They decided that they didn't want outside eyes, the press, to come. They wanted to let their kids play the sports that they love, play their sports without having someone coming in and asking about the shooting. They wanted to let them play their sport.
And speaking of playing sports, very, very big tie here in the northern region. It's a very, very tight-knit community. And the tight-knit community, it's even more tight-knit in sports than anyone else, is track. Track, a lot of students know each other very well. It's a very tight-knit group. And there's a track athlete from this area that is among the fallen. Leslie Sherman from Springfield, Virginia, John, a girl from your area of coverage. She's 20 years old. She was a sophomore at Virginia Tech. She was studying history and international studies. What else do we know about Leslie?
Well, Leslie was a four-year track player. She was also on the National Honor Society. There's been some reports out there that she was a basketball player. I spoke with a source. She's actually indeed a track player, not a basketball player. But from every indication, it seems like she did an excellent job of being able to balance her academics and schoolwork at the same time.
Leslie Sherman was a 2006 graduate of West Springfield. She was on the track team. I wanted to read a quote here from someone that knew her. She was always in her books. She was so respectful when it came to the parents. The parents loved her. And obviously, this is a time when you really want to wrap, your family, and you want to be around your family. And Leslie Sherman, part of a tight-knit track family from this area, and a lot of people now reaching out to the Sherman family, and we wish them the best. John, Leslie Sherman was part of the National Honor Society. She was also a four-year member of the track team. She was one of the fallen at Norris Hall. What do you think her legacy is in this northern region and in Virginia? Away from many of these students might be remembered as being part of something negative in the way that they did pass. What do you think her legacy is to the northern region?
Well, being on the track for 4 years, she's very athletic, but to be able to sustain being on the National Honor Society, to go to Virginia Tech, to be taking, she was taking a French class when it goes on. She was taking difficult classes there. I think her legacy may be one of somebody that was dedicated to her schoolwork, a solid athlete, and just an overall good, solid kid that just enjoyed life and everything about it.
I think that we have a photo of Leslie Sherman. If we wanted to flash that before we did move on, we only have a certain amount of time. We'll get to that if we have it. Let's move on now, though, guys. We only have a certain amount of time. I wish we had more time to spend on each person. Maxine Turner went to James Madison High School, and she graduated in 2003. Maxine Turner, not an athlete, but she was part of the orchestra. She was involved. She was an FCPS student that was very involved in the schools, and she was going after a degree in chemical engineering. And she was going to take a job in Elkton, Maryland, to work for W.L. Gore and Associates. They make the Gore-Tex stuff that we often see on the sidelines, guys, protecting people from the rain. And in a minute here, we're going to be getting some of her family and friends on the phone with us. She lived in Vienna. Parents Susan, Father Paul was traveling in the Middle East, guys, and I've got to throw that out to you. He's on the way back now. How difficult, we're not parents, but that's got to be difficult to get that news when you're in such an area where you're probably at risk.
It's definitely something that no parent should have to go through. I'd like to read a quote that I got from about Maxine and how much she was looking towards the future, talking about her job at W.L. Gore and Associates. Not sure what I'm doing yet, but they are awesome, all capital letters. A girl that was definitely had a bright future and was very excited about it.
And that was a word that was used to describe her in several articles. She was a young lady. I want to read a quick excerpt from this article here. Max Turner was accustomed to capitalizing on the word awesome to describe the job she had lined up after graduating from college and taking some time off this summer. We're going to take some time away from reading that, and we want to bring up our next guest who's going to speak a little bit about Maxine. Beverly Winder, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Mrs. Winder. I got a chance to speak with you earlier today. You were an orchestra teacher at Madison, and you were as part of the school system in Fairfax County for 30 years. You're now in Roanoke, and I'm sure that probably complicates things, being near where Virginia Tech is. But this is a show, as we talked about earlier today, about highlighting some of these young people who did pass too early. Can you talk a little bit about Maxine and what she was like as one of your students?
I would be glad to speak about Maxine and her experience at Madison. First of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes. You sound great.
Okay, I have an echo on my end, so I
Okay.
just wanted to be sure. First, I want to express my deepest condolences, of course, to Maxine's family and the friends in the Fairfax County community at large. As you can imagine, this area has been in shock for the last 2 days, and there are prayer services and vigils all over the area, and so everybody involved with the situation, of course, is in our thoughts and prayers. But when you asked me today to speak about Maxine, I was not sure I could begin to express my grief or to gather my thoughts to remember all the wonderful things I have of Maxine. I had asked you if one of her closest high school friends, Laura Hackett, could speak as well. However, when Laura and I spoke, she asked me to tell you she really would love to speak, but she just becomes too overwhelmed and honestly just can't hold it together.
That's no problem. We certainly understand that, and we will not take that in any negative way, and certainly want to thank you for coming on with us and sharing your thoughts. We certainly appreciate that.
Well, when I spoke to Laura, and I have to tell you that I've had students call me here at the house to make sure I'm aware of everything, and parents of these students, where their kids are away at their colleges and universities. My daughter, who's there in Fairfax, has received emails and IMs about their concerns and just sharing with one another about their memories and, their grief and the kids are doing. And as we were talking, we all pretty much described Maxine in much the same way. So my comments here are kind of a compilation of things the kids have been telling me and talking about. First of all, I taught Maxine 7th through 12th grades, so I've known her and her family for a long time. And as I think back, I can describe her in a few short words. She was extremely highly motivated, very goal-oriented, vivacious, bubbly, giggly, always cheerful, a motivator for other students, beautiful, and a very caring young lady. In the middle school, she was very active with the orchestra program and the drama, and I believe she was taking some more advanced math courses at that time. In the high school, she was in the Honor Society with the orchestra. She loved the swing club, the dance swing club, and she participated in the chorus of at least one school musical and worked behind the scenes for drama productions. And by listing those activities, you can imagine she was a master of balancing her academics and her many activities. Music, like sport, takes individual practice to develop her individual skills, and then the team ensemble practices and rehearsals as well. Maxine was always prepared and eager to do her part to help others in any way she could and to bring the ensemble together. I vividly remember Maxine teaching her stand partner their part, marking bowing and fingering suggestions, or asking questions in rehearsal so those that are around her would have the correct musical phrasing and nuance. But I was aware that she already knew the answer and the musical expression, but she didn't want to bring attention to other students or hurt their feelings by saying, hey, you're doing that wrong, or just do it this way. She was always very sensitive to the other kids and their feelings and how they would respond. And in this way, she was a motivator. She was a team player, but she really motivated the kids to do their best so then we could all do our best together. Also, if the kids had a question about calculus or chemistry before or after rehearsal, there would be Maxine. She would be teaching or holding class because they all knew who to go to get the right answer. That was Maxine, always giving and helping others. In our annual spring trips, Maxine could be counted on to lead study groups on long bus rides or lead tour groups to whatever city we were in, or get the sections together for sectionals in the hotel to be certain that everyone was up for the competition. As I said earlier, Maxine was very goal-oriented, and she was to receive her degree in just about 3 weeks in chemical engineering. Laura reminded me today that as early as elementary school, she had wanted to be a marine biologist, and then that evolved into chemical engineering. She was so proud that she was going to be a woman engineer. She was very proud to be a woman and that a woman could accomplish anything she set her mind to. And when I spoke to her folks in March, they were so proud of all of her accomplishments and related that she already had a job. Were you aware of this before?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what company, but they were so proud, and I think it had something to do with the environment or the green products.
Right. There's a product out there that it's called Gore-Tex, and it helps. It's part of well, more than just jackets and that sort of thing. That's kind of why we know it as sports guys, because we're on the sidelines and we see coaches often wearing that as protective gear. But there's a lot more to it than that. And it looked like she was going to be taking a job in Maryland, and she would have been pretty close to home.
That's true. And over the years, I've gotten to know the family, and her little brother was a violinist as well. They were an extremely close family. And, we're all going to miss Maxine in so many ways that this little bit of time can't begin to express. I hope this helps you get a little bit more of an idea of the Maxine that we all knew and loved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beverly, we want to thank you so much for doing this and giving us that insight into Maxine. Please pass along our condolences to her family and to the Hackett family as well. And we hope that Laura will come along very nicely from this. I know it's a difficult thing, and I hope that she does recover after losing a friend that she's been a friend with since kindergarten, I think we talked about earlier today. So thank you so much for coming on with us and sharing this story with us and giving our viewers and the viewers at home from Madison too as well, the kids there that are tuning in, to know who Maxine Turner was, and for also everyone that you haven't probably seen in a while, being that you are now in Roanoke. Thanks for checking in and giving us the view on Maxine Turner.
Thank you very much for asking me.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Well, guys, what I was trying to say there was that Vienna and James Madison High School is a tight-knit community. That is a community that everyone knows everybody, and I'm certain that at this moment there has been an outpouring of affection towards the Turner family. We want to thank Beverly Winder for coming on with us. 30 years at Fairfax County Public Schools. She's now in Roanoke, and you heard her mention it. It's got to be very difficult, Paul, to be in that area right now.
Definitely, Beverly told us how involved she was with the other classmates, helping them with their studies, helping them on school trips. So she was someone that was definitely a leader for her classmates and someone that definitely will be missed.
Well, we don't want to miss talking about some more of these people from the northern region. We've got a couple more people, unfortunately, to talk about. Mary Karen Reed played lacrosse at Annandale High School in her freshman and sophomore years. She played for Coach Cindy Hook. And Cindy Hook, I talked to her earlier today, and she's got a lot of interesting stories about the Annandale graduate. Mary Karen Reed, talk about her a little bit, guys, 19 years old, had the whole world ahead of her from Annandale, Virginia. She was a freshman, and she was at Norris Hall when the unfortunate events went down. I want to read the first sentence here of a story that we picked up about her. Mary Reed was a fun-loving 19-year-old who graduated from Fairfax's Annandale High School last spring. She lived in Fairfax County since 1991. Her dad, Peter, and stepmother, Kathy, are both retired military personnel who live in an older subdivision in this area. She went to Annandale High School. She was very involved. She was an IB student, and she also played lacrosse for her first 2 years there. And it's an interesting story that I'm sure her coach is going to get a chance now to share with us. Coach Cindy Hook, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Coach Hook, we talked earlier in the day today, and you mentioned that Mary Karen Reed, she played 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, and she was really dedicated to her studies. Can you kind of share the story you shared with me? I think that will really give our viewers at home the insight as to what kind of person she was.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Mary played JV her freshman and sophomore years, and then during tryouts her junior year, she worked really hard and looked really good the first couple days, and then she came to us and said that she was really concerned. She was carrying a full IB load. She's an advanced student taking all IB classes, and the time was just not working out for her with giving so much time to practice every day and working hard and, of course, being a little tired after practice and then having all of her studies to do. And she was concerned she wouldn't be able to give the full effort to lacrosse that, you know, being a team member, she was very into giving, you know, a full, complete, dedicated effort every day, that she didn't think she was up to being able to do that and also give that great effort to her studies. And so she made the very difficult decision to not play lacrosse her junior year, but because she loved lacrosse so much and her teammates and enjoyed it so much, she asked if she would be able to come to practice on just certain days when she was able to give the time and work with the JV players and help them and help us with shooting on the goalies and warming them up. And of course, we definitely accepted her offer to help, and she was such a great role model. She was a kind and good person, but she was also a really tough competitor. She was polite and very energetic and always just such a good role model. And so it was great to be able to have her spend time with the lacrosse girls that junior year when, you know, she really had so much work to do on the outside, but I think it was a great outlet for her as well to be able to be involved with the sport she loves with her friends and also be such a good help to them.
And, Coach, now definitely looking at Mary, what do you think would be a legacy she would leave to the teammates that she helped, the JV team that she helped, and for the 2 years that she played her teammates?
Well, I think that, you know, essentially she really, really embodied what we would like for all players to do, to give their absolute best effort every day, to keep it fun and in perspective, to enjoy being with your friends while you're working really hard, to be reliable and honest, respectful. She had and showed great sportsmanship, and always and on time. And it just seemed that you know, for all the reasons that our schools have athletic programs, for all the things we want our student athletes to learn by competing and being part of teams. I think that Mary embodied that because she was, in addition to her studies and playing lacrosse, I should also mention that she was a member of our band program, our marching band, as well as our winter band. And so she was, definitely a part of lots of different areas of Annandale High School. And I think that, she certainly, it's evident in the effect that this terrible tragedy has had on the girls on our team, and even the younger girls on our team that, knew her through the band, even more so than through lacrosse, like our current sophomores. She definitely had a great impact with her, just her spirit. She's just a great and happy kid.
Coach, how would the other teammates describe her when they spoke with you about her?
Well, everyone remembers her as being very helpful and very happy, smiling, helping people to be in a good mood. She was always very aware and concerned with, if someone wasn't having a good day, and she might warm up with them. I had different stories. My senior goalkeeper, Marie Hahn, was telling me that she remembers a time when they were playing, and it was they were down the defensive end, and Mary went to give a ball back to Marie and kind of shot it over her head and into the goal. And she remembers that as one of they laughed about it, of course, afterwards, but that was, one of those pretty unforgettable moments that happened amongst best of friends, because she definitely, did lots of shooting on Marie for helping her and warming her up and things. So, different players have different memories, but they're all very similar in the idea that Mary was definitely a quality friend, a caring friend, and one that they definitely are going to miss. We all will.
Coach, we want to thank you so much for coming on with us here tonight and giving us a little bit of insight as to who Mary was and for sharing that with our viewers. Thanks so much and good luck.
Thanks, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Thank you, Coach.
Mary Karen Reed, guys, 19 years old, freshman, didn't even have a chance to declare a major at Tech, had the whole world ahead of her, obviously made a big impact at Annandale High School.
One common theme that we're seeing among these victims is so well-rounded, talented in different aspects, and that's not a coincidence. It's not easy to get into a school like Virginia Tech, and you're seeing how talented with the future that these kids had. Mary, giving up a sport that she loved so she could focus on her studies and get into a school like Virginia Tech, and it's definitely a huge loss.
Another huge loss, Rima Samaha out of Chantilly, Virginia, one of the 3 people that are deceased from Westfield High School, 2006 grad. She was only 18 years old, was undeclared major, didn't even have an opportunity to find out what she wanted to do. Had the world ahead of her, as most of these kids, as we've mentioned, they've had. She was at Norris Hall. I want to read something about her. Even before Rima Samaha could study theater at Westfield High School and later Virginia Tech, she gravitated toward the stage. Only it was the basement of her Centerville home on a makeshift set she and other neighborhood children pieced together. I think that gives us some insight as to what kind of person she was. She was a go-getter. She was a person that if she didn't have a stage to be on, she would go and make one. And I think that John, shows that these kids, all of these kids, because even though some of them are 19 and 18 and officially they're adults, they were kids. And I think that showed her childish side and her young side, doing the theater and staying involved at Westfield.
What's amazing about all the kids is they concentrate on their studies, each and every one of them, but all of them seem to have cared about other people as well. I mean, they want to help out lacrosse teams. They want to build stages. They want to be part of orchestra. They all want to do something for others as well themselves. We're not dealing with selfish kids here. We're dealing with kids that genuinely care about their surrounding friends, their community, their school. I mean, these are good kids in the society that we unfortunately lost.
One thing that I'd like to mention is going off on her talent. She received a $5,000 theater scholarship in her senior year, obviously a talented member of the dance team and very interested in theater.
We're going to go to a break now, but when we come back, we're going to try to move forward and check in on some of our sports teams. This is a sports show, and sports has often been used as a rallying point during trying times like these. And during trying times like these, we often come together and rally around a game or something to get our minds off of the terrible tragedies that have occurred at Virginia Tech. I want to read one last quote from the story written about Samaha, and we'll close out this segment of the show on that. "She doesn't deserve this. None of them deserve this." Come back for more here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report here on the Fairfax Sports Network. We want to jump right into lacrosse as we transition, guys, from a terrible tragedy, as you can see on our shirts, showing our support for the Hokies. Today, we are all Hokies. We want to jump into some sports here on the Triple Edge Lacrosse Report, guys. Let's show the folks at home exactly who sits where in the top 10 in the Northern region on our Triple Edge Lacrosse Top 10. We get these top 10 rankings from Triple Edge Lacrosse, and they tell us each week who are the top teams. John, who are the top teams for the boys of the Northern region?
I have a little deja vu this week and last week. As you notice, standings basically remain the same. Robinson still at the top. They had 150 points. Langley sits second. Westfield is third. Woodson Cavaliers, they are fourth. Oakton Cougars are fifth. Hayfield Hawks, they are sixth. Madison's Warhawks are seventh. Yorktown is eighth. Jefferson in ninth. And those Chantilly Chargers, numero 10.
Chantilly right there at the number 10 spot. And interesting that Langley is at number 2 right now. This is a team we talked to Coach Earl Brewer last week. 12 years with the Saxons. Coach Earl Brewer been getting it done for quite a while, but they've always they've never gotten to that upper echelon, John, you mentioned. They've been in the top of the Northern region, but they've never quite grasped what they've wanted, which has been a title. And right now, at the number 2 spot in the Northern region, they could be a team that might make some noise.
They might be able to make some noise, but if you've seen Robinson play, they are just in such a completely different league. When you play Robinson, you're going to have to bring your A+++ game to have a chance of beating with them. I mean, Robinson plays Gonzaga this weekend. It's just a powerhouse over there at Robinson, but Langley definitely can't get much better than numero dos.
Interesting that Westfield, a team that just lost to Oakton. Oakton went into that matchup. Both Paul and I were there. Westfield versus Oakton. Oakton came out and scored 3 goals to start off the second half and just pushed Westfield back on its heels. Westfield was leading at the half. Oakton, a team that went into that game with a 1-4 overall record. Westfield with a 5-1 record. And that was, I was telling the coaches before the game, anybody who thinks Oakton's down is crazy. They played Archbishop Spalding, DeMatha, and some other top private schools before going into that. That's why their record was what it was.
Some people might say that Oakton took Westfield by surprise. Every kid on that field knew how talented Oakton was. Westfield was not taken by surprise. They were just outplayed by the Cougars. The Cougars and Westfield are both very good teams, and those records meant nothing when they both went on the field.
Let's show the folks at home, John Marcario, the girls of the Northern region. Who sits where in the top 10? Oakton right up at the top. Paul, why don't you jump in and show us why are the Cougars sitting up at the top again?
Surprise, surprise. You see Oakton and Robinson at number 1 and 2. Previous to them are number 2. Loudoun Valley holds strong at number 3 with 101 points. You can see 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's exactly the same as last week, with Yorktown at number 4, West Springfield coming in at number 5, Langley, Woodson, and Chantilly at 6, 7, and 8, and Annandale and Lake Braddock rounding out the top 10.
I think it's interesting that Oakton and Robinson right there up at the top. We could see a rematch of last year's big game, the first official state title. Robinson, a team that has always given Oakton fits in big games, but Oakton has always been able to pull away, and Oakton holding the better of the series there. We had Oakton coach Gene Counts with us a couple of weeks ago. They were coming back from a spring break trip. They didn't really go. They didn't really go to do any damage per se in a tournament, but it was more of a bonding trip. I think that speaks a lot about coaching, a lot about coming back from a state championship season and giving your players some time off before going for a postseason run.
When you are ranked number 1 and you have been ranked number 1, there is a pressure on your shoulders. You are being shot for. The Robinson boys know that feeling. Teams are coming after you, so you need a chance to unwind. You got to just sit back and go, okay, breathe, and then get right back into the thick of things.
You talk about pressure and you talk about top-ranked teams that have people always coming after them. Ashley McCulloch is a player that many of you who have watched this show and are fans of the Northern Region's lacrosse scene might remember Ashley McCulloch. Ashley McCulloch, as a freshman at W.T. Woodson, scored in double overtime to give the Cavaliers a victory in the state title game. It was still unofficial then, but it was official here in the Northern Region. Ashley McCulloch now plays for the UVA Cavaliers. The Cavaliers were in town taking on George Mason the other day, and the Fairfax Sports Network was there and got a chance to catch up with Ashley. Let's see what Ashley had to say. As a freshman at W.T. Woodson, in double overtime, came up big, helping the team to a state championship. But here tonight, against the hometown Patriots in front of her former coach and mom and dad, scored in the early goings. Ashley, good to be home. Good to have you.
Yes, it's nice to be home.
Ashley, talk a little bit about tonight and being ranked 7th in the country after a loss to Johns Hopkins. How important was this game to your squad?
It was very important because we came in on Saturday and didn't have a good game, so we knew with ACCs coming up in the postseason that we had to pick it up and really play well. So.
And what are some of the pressures that come with being nationally ranked? You were part of a high school program in this area that was always ranked pretty high, but on the collegiate level, it's a little bit different going into that. What are some of the different pressures or responsibilities that come with that?
I think the just pressure of having to win and play well, and when you do get beat, seeing the other team, it's they're national championship, they win, and just feeling so bad. But I think it's fun, and you like to go out there and play well.
You enjoyed the pressure of playing on a Division I collegiate team such as Virginia, who has such an impressive record going back through the years, and a plethora of players who have come away with All-American honors.
Yeah, I mean, it's real fun, and we love to go out there and it's, have a good time and play hard and win. So you don't really feel the pressure as much as one would think. So you just go out there and play your hardest.
Ashley McCulloch used to playing her hardest and not cracking under any sort of pressure. A lot of different sports she played. I'm going to embarrass her a little bit here. She won a state title as a freshman with Woodson, a couple more to follow. Was the Northern Region Player of the Year in lacrosse and field hockey, and she earned a varsity letter at Woodson, 11 of 12 seasons in high school. Ashley, best of luck. And guys, Ashley McCulloch doesn't need the best of luck because she's always had it, guys. This is a girl, 11 of 12 seasons at Woodson High School. In her 4 years, she won varsity letters, 11 of 12 seasons. I think that speaks volumes about the kind of athlete she was. She was also at the Connection newspapers ranked in the top 100 of the athletes ever to come out of this area. She was ranked right at number 50, so right there on the timeline. She's got 25 goals this season and 19 assists for the UVA Cavaliers. So she goes from being a Cavalier in high school to being a Cavalier in college, and she had a goal in the game versus George Mason. So good to see one of our products, Ashley McCulloch, getting it done at the next level. John, another guy who's going to be getting it done at the next level, a guy that's headed to play baseball in the Colonial Conference for a team that you and I won't like too much because we're Mason grads, but our Fairfax Sports Network's Athlete of the Week is a young man from South County, Kyle Hall.
Kyle Hall, the stellar starting pitcher for the Stallions. He'll be going to Old Dominion University, signed a letter of intent recently. He pitches left-handed. He's a team captain. Last season, he was second-team All-Patriot. So far this week, he's got a one-hitter against West Potomac in the team's 9-2 win. He's played a major role in the Stallions' reemergence as one of the top teams in the Patriot District. Hall will be responsible for the Stallions possibly winning the Northern Region title.
Kyle Hall, there he is, signing his letter of intent. He's a lefty, and that's where the baseball sits, on his left side, but the pen in his right hand to sign that national letter of intent. He's joining the Monarchs, John, a squad that has always been good in the Colonial. They're going to get a chance to see him, though, when they come into town and play the Patriots, where we've got a couple of other Northern Region kids doing pretty well as well. Kyle Hall, the Fairfax Sports Network's Athlete of the Week, as presented by the Connection newspapers. If you want to nominate an Athlete of the Week, go to our website at www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. All right, guys, we want to jump into a little bit of baseball before we get rolling out of here. Did a little bit of a different show today, but we're used to talking a lot about baseball. Let's show the folks at home exactly who sits where in the top 10 from the coaches in the northern region. John Marcario right up at the top, no surprise, the big Madison Warhawks.
Yes, the Warhawks at the top. This is starting to be a great time for baseball. Bitterly cold now, but the season is definitely heating up. Madison sits at the top. They are number 1. Lake Braddock's Bruins are number 2. Langley Saxons, number 3. Robinson Rams, 4. Oakton Cougars are 5. Chantilly Chargers are everywhere. They are number 6. Stonebridge Bulldogs are 7th. South County Stallions are 8th. West Springfield Spartans are 9th. And Yorktown rounds out your top 10.
And I want to leave that up there for just a minute because I just cannot understand why West Springfield cannot crack the top 5. This is a team that defeated the number 2 ranked team in Lake Braddock, and I got a chance to talk to one of the coaches that votes on this thing, and they're getting penalized for losing to T.C. Williams, John, and that's a team that maybe a lot of people think they shouldn't have lost to.
They should not have lost to them. If you're in 9th place in the coaches poll, TC recently did get back their stud catcher, but you cannot lose that game 3-2 and expect to compete with the big boys up top. That is just an unexcusable loss. I said it last week. That was going to be a get-well week for them. Not good.
And, Paul, we talked a lot about the Concord District on this show in the last couple of weeks. A big game this past week in the Concord District. Morgan Spencer maybe putting his stamp on the program. Spencer's a guy we've had on this show over at Centerville.
Centerville 0-6 during their last 3 seasons against the Westfield Bulldogs. Coach Spencer, 11 games into his tenure as the Wildcats head coach, gets a win over the Bulldogs. Pitcher Corey Hall pitched a 2-hitter in 6 innings to get the win. Kyle Hersani pitched a scoreless 7th, and obviously this is a defining mark for Spencer and the Bulldogs. When you beat and the Wildcats, when you're, I don't want to get them mixed up. They'll come after me. When you beat a team like the Bulldogs, even though as was mentioned, they're not the top dogs in the Concord right now. Still, when you beat a rival like the Bulldogs, it's a huge win and it gains momentum for the rest of the season.
A couple of teams ranked from the Concord District. Robinson in 4th place, Oakton in 5th, Chantilly in 6th. Oakton lost Brandon Padula early in the season. He was supposed to be their big hitter, headed to West Virginia, but Keith Werman has just been on fire. I can't even remember all the stats because there's so many of them, but Keith Werman, the catcher, a junior, has been on fire for the Cougars, and a big reason as to why their bats have been so hot. John, a couple of hot matchups, though, coming up here in the northern region. Some rivalry games coming up on Saturday. What are some of the top billed games coming up?
Saturday we have a doubleheader with Langley and Madison. First game at 12, second game at 3.
That'll be the JV game first and the varsity game at 3.
We also have South Lakes at Herndon at 1 p.m. on Saturday, but definitely a doozy on Monday at Hayfield. We have South County playing at Hayfield, 6:30. 2 teams that do not like each other, 2 teams that are very good this year.
All right, and some other teams that are really good this year that don't often get the love on this show, but we're going to start giving them some more love. It's those Loudon schools, and we're on in Loudon now, so the Loudon schools getting a little love from our Loudon beat reporter, Paul Frummelt, and the Loudon Report. Go ahead and take it away, Paul.
Welcome to the Loudon Report. Now, this week I had a chance to talk to 3 very talented soccer players in Loudon. Oh, yeah, and they also happen to be related. Uche Anyador, Olivia Anyador, and KC Anyador are 3 extremely talented players. Uche plays for the Potomac Falls Panthers, defending AA state champions, and Uche was last year's AA state player of the year. And his cousins, Olivia, a senior at Parkview, and KC, a freshman at Parkview, both play for the Patriots. Olivia has signed on to play at the University of Maryland, where she will continue her soccer career. KC, only a freshman, has scored 4 goals already this year and has kind of unfairly been compared to Uche, who is the premier player in Loudon. But as Olivia told me, KC's only a freshman. In a couple of years, this Dulles district is going to be KC's. Now, when I talked to Uche, I got a couple really interesting facts. That he has received full scholarship offers from Notre Dame, Georgetown, and George Washington to play soccer for them. So Uche, only a junior, the college interest is only going to be heating up. And that's it for your Loudon Report.
And jumping out of the Loudon Report into another new segment that we've put in this show, John Marcario's Madness. gets madder and madder every week. John, what's grinding your gears this week?
Well, tonight we're stepping away from the madness and turning our attention down to Blacksburg, Virginia, where they had 32 people were tragically killed, including the gunman. Scores more have remained injured. Since then, a shocked nation has prayed for those dead and hoped that the wounded get better. Now, around the northern region, several kids have committed to Virginia Tech. I wonder how many are either rethinking their decision to go down there or have a closer tie towards Hokie Nation. Recently, I spoke with Zach Holmes, a Robinson swimmer. He says he feels 100% dedicated to going down to Virginia Tech. I spoke with Paul Grinnups, another Westfield stellar swimmer. He says he wants to go down to Virginia Tech even more so than he did before. Now, unfortunately, during the tragedy itself, ESPN and other major news outlets had statements from Frank Beamer, the football coach, and the basketball coaches at Virginia Tech, saying that all their players were accounted for. I hope the news outlets didn't forget about the other players and the other coaches, because in this tragedy such as this, everybody is one. No one group or one person stands alone. Everybody is a Hokie. On Friday, I propose that schools across the Commonwealth and in the state of Virginia have a moment of silence, any way, shape, or form, to remember those wounded. It can come in the form of an arm patch. It can be a silent moment at 12:01, but I hope everybody says some kind of moment. See, Virginia Tech you may not be a fan of Virginia Tech, but they are part of each and every high school around Northern Virginia and in Virginia. There are alumni, there are fans, there are prospective students. Hokie Nation has touched each and every high school, and I hope every school takes an opportunity to recognize those that have fallen.
And guys, it's a great point, John. Hokie Nation, we are all a part of Hokie Nation this week. We're all Hokies, no matter what school or what your allegiances are. Let's thank the folks that make this show possible. Of course, we're talking about our underwriters, CCI Screen Printing, for all your screen printing needs at 703-978-0257. And Quality Care Ford Service Center, they service all makes and models at 703-383-6299. And Triple Edge Lacrosse, they are one of our stellar teammates at www.tripleedgelax.com. And guys, if you want to go to the web to check out what are the games coming up on the Fairfax Sports Network, you can certainly do that. Go to www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. I want to thank you folks for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report today. It was a different kind of show, and a show that we wish we didn't have to do. We're glad that we got a chance to highlight some of the fallen and the victims, and we pray for them as we know you will at home and for their families. And as we mentioned, folks, today and for the rest of this week at least, and as long as you'd like to, be a Hokie. We're all Hokies.